All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really high-stakes meeting happening in Alaska. We're talking about President Trump and Vladimir Putin sitting down to hammer out a deal that could end the war in Ukraine. But, as we're about to see, what's behind the summit is a whole lot more complicated. It's a tangled story of land, intelligence battles, and some very long-term strategic moves.
So, you have to ask yourself, how did we even get to this point? Is this a genuine shot at peace? Or is it maybe the final play in a game that actually kicked off almost a decade ago? Let's dig into the facts as our source material lays them out.
So the meeting is set for August 15th, and the location is Anchorage, Alaska. Now, that choice is absolutely not an accident. First off, it's symbolic, right? Alaska used to be Russian territory. But it's also incredibly practical. It lets Vladimir Putin get around the international travel restrictions he's under because of his indictment for war crimes.
Okay, so let's get to the core of it. The main proposal on the table is what people are calling a land for peace deal. And the terms are pretty stark. Ukraine agrees to an immediate ceasefire, but the price for that peace is massive. Kyiv would have to officially hand over all of its Russian-occupied territories to Moscow. For good.
The sheer scale of what we're talking about here is just staggering. This isn't just a sliver of land. We're talking about Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. All told, that's about 20% of Ukraine's sovereign territory, and it includes its industrial heartland and its absolutely vital ports on the Black Sea.
But here's where it gets really interesting. A crucial piece of context from the source. This deal, it's not some new idea they just cooked up. It's basically a carbon copy of something called the Mariupol Plan. This was a framework that Russian operatives pitched way back in 2016, and that plan also aimed to carve up Ukraine. So it suggests the strategy we're seeing play out today has been on the Kremlin's to-do list for a very long time.
Okay, so if you're going to push a deal this huge, this controversial, you have to control the story. And that brings us to the second front in this whole affair, a brand new intelligence war that's flaring up right inside Washington. So, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has just declassified this really contentious House Republican report from 2020. Now, according to the source article, this move seems designed to do one thing: rewrite the entire history of Russian interference in the 2016 election, basically creating a new official narrative right as this peace deal is hitting the table.
And the claims in this report are absolutely explosive. I mean, it doesn't just question the original 2017 intelligence assessment, it calls it a manufactured plot. It goes so far as to accuse former officials of treason. The report argues that the whole assessment was built on flimsy, substandard sources, and that key objections from the CIA were basically shut down at the time. So this sets up a tale of two completely opposite reports. On one side, you have this newly released House report that basically calls Russian interference a hoax. But on the other side, you have a 2020 report from the Senate Intelligence Committee, which, by the way, was Republican-led and bipartisan. And their investigation? It found irrefutable evidence of meddling and stated with high confidence that Vladimir Putin himself ordered the whole thing.
And if there was ever any real doubt about who Russia wanted to win, well, Putin himself cleared that up. Remember when he was standing right next to President Trump in Helsinki back in 2018? He was asked, point blank, if he wanted Trump to win the election. And his answer was brutally simple: yes, I did.
All of this starts to build a picture of what the source calls a broader psychological strategy from the Kremlin. The goal here isn't just about winning a battle or gaining territory. It's about sending signals, projecting power, and showing control.
I mean, just look at this recent move. Vladimir Putin gives a posthumous medal to an American who died fighting for Russia in Ukraine. But here's the kicker. He has the award delivered directly to the man's mother, who just so happens to be Juliana Galina, the deputy director of the CIA. Think about that. This was not some quiet diplomatic formality. This was a deeply personal, provocative message aimed directly at the highest levels of U.S. intelligence. So what's the play here? Is it a calculated humiliation? A signal of control? Well, according to the analysts cited in our source, it's a classic move from the psychological playbook. It's designed to do both: to humiliate,
to let you know that they have inside knowledge, and to project this absolute confidence that they can manipulate events from a distance.
And the central argument from the source is that none of this is happening in a vacuum. It's all connected. You start with the Mariupol plan in 2016, then the intel findings in 2017, then those leaked documents in 2021 confirming Putin's orders, and now, here we are at the Alaska summit in 2025. It looks less like a series of random events and more like deliberate steps in a consistent, long-term Russian strategy.
So that brings us to the really big picture, the global stakes. Why should a country halfway around the world care about this deal being struck in Alaska? Well, the answer goes back to a promise that was made decades ago.
Back in 1994, Ukraine made this absolutely historic choice. It agreed to give up what was then the world's third largest arsenal of nuclear weapons. And in exchange, the US, the UK, and, this is the crucial part, Russia, all signed the Budapest Memorandum. They promised to respect Ukraine's independence and its borders. The deal on the table in Alaska? It completely tears that promise up.
And according to former officials quoted in the source, the precedent this could set is just incredibly dangerous. Think about the message it sends. It tells the world that if you conquer territory by force, you can eventually be rewarded with legitimacy. It tells other nations that maybe the only real security guarantee you have is to get your own nuclear bomb. And yeah, it could be seen as a green light for other major powers, giving them ideas about their own territorial ambitions. It's basically throwing out the international rulebook and replacing it with what one official called the law of the jungle.
So in the end, we're left with this huge, lingering question. On the surface, the Alaska summit is being sold as the end of a horrible, brutal war. But the source material we've gone through argues it could be something else entirely. The successful end of a decade-long Russian campaign and the start of a much more dangerous and unstable world. And that forces all of us to ask, when a deal is struck to end one conflict, what new conflicts does it begin?